So, Ethan, how do you spend your time now as the Graphite CEO? How does your workday or work week typically look like?
Mostly spending time on building strategies for clients. So building and reviewing strategies for clients.
Nice. The strategies, are they often about something programmatic?
A third of the time they're programmatic and 2/3 content, I would say.
Do you find that there's a lot of overlap where a company does both and does it well?
100% of companies should do editorial and 1/3 should do programmatic, I would say. And there's definitely overlap between the two. I mean, basically content is the overlap between the two. It's just a question of where the content comes from.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. We have a section, a chapter in the course about how to think about whether programmatic is for you. So, which companies would you say are those that should be doing programmatic, the 1/3 that you mentioned?
Marketplaces, commerce, local, and then any company that has a large database of the items that can be chopped up into different groups of items, and UGC forum community type sites.
Uh-huh. And so the specific examples you mentioned, like marketplaces and commerce and local, is it also because they often have databases, or is it something else?
Well, first question is, what topics do you want to go after? What topics and keywords do you want to go after? And are the landing pages for those programmatic landing pages? And then the second is, are you able to create the landing pages? So if you have many items, you can create those landing pages. If you don't have many items, or if you don't have a database of information, then you don't have a method to create programmatic content.
Makes sense. And where do you think programmatic is going, the future of it? So, for instance, Tanuka thinks that most SEO will become programmatic because AI is getting better and because more and more companies have a database that they can work with. What would you say about where this sub field is going?
It's up to Google. And it's kind of like asking, where will scraped content go? And scraped content used to be a programmatic play, and it's very effective, but Google decided that they don't like it. So if Google decides that they don't like programmatic content, then they'll downweight it for whatever the content type or the category is. And if they decide that they do like it, then everyone will do it. So it's more so up to Google and other search engines.
So, what do you see? What do you see in user behavior? Often, Google follows user behavior, and the analytics that you look at for your clients in your work. Do you see programmatic content produced at scale being well received by users?
Not yet. I think that it might. I think that users will want some sort of unique information or unique takes. And if there's not a unique take, they won't like it. So an example of that would be, if you have weather data and you have AI generated content, but you have a unique take, then AI content would be great. You don't need a human to write that. But if it's something like, I have a headache, what should I do about it? And it's just sort of derivatives of derivatives with no unique information or expertise, I think users will not want that. They will want some sort of unique information or information from the expert. So it's a question of whether or not there's uniqueness, expertise on top of the AI.
Okay. So let's say the company has what they need to be a good candidate for programmatic. What do they need? What does a company need to have in place or to put in place to get started with programmatic?
Depends on the category, but let's take commerce, for example. So what you would need would be, you'd need a database of items and unique information. The more unique the information is, the better. So you can have some sort of unique summary about a product. And then in terms of process, you could have complete AI content with no human intervention and no feedback loop, or you could have a feedback loop. What you want to do is take a sample of products or items and then create the content, look at the quality, and then if there's some sort of pattern of imperfections and you have a human in the loop, curate that. If there's no issue, then you don't. Or if you say, well, I want to have this be a start for medical information, let's say, but I want to have some sort of uniqueness or expertise on top of that, then maybe I have a doctor in the loop for adding that on top of the initial base content from the AI.
Let's talk about the feedback loops. What do you usually set up as the metrics that you report on for a programmatic strategy?
So metrics are number of pages, whether or not, what percent of the pages got crawled, what percent got indexed, what percent got a little traffic, what percent got a lot of traffic. Taking each page type, number of pages, percent crawled, indexed, little traffic, a lot of traffic, and the conversions.
Nice. Thank you. Ethan, how close to the money do you think you can get with reporting on programmatic? You know, like when I worked with clients, even when they would tell me they are mostly interested in building traffic, it would come down to the dollar signs sooner or later anyway. So we always try to get ahead of it and set up analytics that would speak to how we are helping the dollar signs, you know, how we're contributing to revenue. What do you find in programmatic, or how you like to report on it in terms of tying it to revenue? How often you can do it that way, or maybe on the contrary, maybe you have to focus more on other metrics instead? What could you say to that?
It depends on the keyword. If the keyword has conversion intent, then you can look at last touch and then you can measure it perfectly. Something like buy a camera, buy a washing machine, you can attribute that 100%. For something like B2B, that's going to be earlier in your journey and you're not going to convert. So then you'll have to do sort of multi-touch model, which is complicated and almost no one does that, and it's challenging.
So if you get to scenario where you would need a multi-touch attribution model, do you mostly find it skipped, or do you still like to dive in and try at least, or what's your approach to attribution?
We'll do first touch. First touch and then leading indicators, like did you sign up for newsletter or stuff like that. But yeah, first touch. No one does multi-touch. Almost no one does multi-touch.
Yeah, there used to be some dilemmas about that. Now there's less and less. Matt Bowers from Zapier said to me that as you scale programmatic, it becomes more and more about analytics. How is that from your experience? How much analytics work is there in the workflow of a programmatic strategy and its execution once the scale is happening? Any kind, you know, whether that's measurement or reporting. You know, I'm thinking about anything that helps you make decisions about what to publish next. It could be even just tech SEO analytics, where you're monitoring the speed metrics and the load metrics. Maybe it's about monitoring the crawl and the index. I'm trying to get to how much of the time spent on executing programmatic would be reasonable to budget for putting into any type of analytics and the feedback loops that come from your data about your performance.
Probably decent amount. So if you had 1 million pages, then you want to slice by dimensions, see which dimensions seem to correlate with better outcomes, and then continuously optimize for this. An example of that would be a word count. Maybe there's some sort of pattern around word count. There's a pattern around which specific categories of products seem to be doing better. Maybe there's something like number of items on page correlation. And then if it's, you know, there is a strong correlation with more items. So then we need to go find more items. Other stuff would be, let's see, type of content. So a lot of programmatic pages will have a grid of items and then block content blocks, so that you can optimize or test the content blocks and optimize which content blocks, the themes of the content blocks. We have tools that allow you to monitor your content score across your whole content corpus. Let me just see if I can show you really quickly. So it's kind of like a clear scope for other companies, but you can automatically score all of your content, which I'll show you here. Yeah, so here are all your pages. We're monitoring it every single day and we're scoring it every single day, and then we're comparing it against a competitor. And competitors might come in and out. So my score might go down because, or sorry, someone else might come in, which is actually pretty common. So let's say that I find a topic that no one else is going after. I start ranking, then my competitors see that I made that topic, and now they come in and start competing for that. So an example of that is we made a bunch of topics for BetterUp, and no one was competing on them. So one of them was 5-year plan, and I'll show you. So we made 5-year plans. No one was competing after it, and we ranked number 1 for a while. And the only thing that was ranking was Stalin's 5-year plan for the Soviet Union, which is not what users wanted. So we were the only thing that was ranking for like 2 years. But now you'll see there's a whole bunch of other companies, HBR, Indeed, HubSpot. The reason why is because they saw that BetterUp's had that page, and then they made a page for that. So now BetterUp's lower, and they want to know that, and they can see, they went down and their content score maybe is imperfect, so then they can go back and start optimizing that. One other thing I can show you is you can do a gap analysis with competitors. No, it's down. Yep. Okay, cool. So this is a scatter plot for topics or landing pages where I can see, this is Deal, Oyster, and Rippling. So I can see where Deal is competing and I'm not, or, Rippling's over here. They have this cluster of stuff. And so now I want to go after that. So this is stuff about, regulations, like things, legal stuff. And Deal is not competing on that. Deal is competing on the, W2 is over here, and this is team building over here. So you can basically do these gap analyses to constantly find new pockets of topics that you're not competing on, that your competitors are. That's monitoring one, which is taking advantage of stuff they're doing. And then the other thing is they're taking our stuff. So how do we see that and then do something about that?
What are the axes? The -10 to 12?
I don't think that they have a true meaning, but the distance has a meaning. So the distance is semantic similarity. So that's why you'll see them grouped here. But I don't think the axis has a true meaning. I mean, it does, but I forget what it is, and it doesn't have a true meaning.
Yeah. I get you. Okay. Yeah, this is interesting. I've interviewed about seven people now, and you've given me the most about what to look at and measure. And in respect of time, I'll let you go. I had a couple other things we could cover, but this was great. So I'll go through that, put it in as quotes and examples, the hands-on examples throughout the course, and we'll keep you posted once it's live. I think after me there'll be a designer. Then we work out a strategy for distribution. Then it goes out, and that's all in the works now. So yeah, thank you very much, Ethan. Thank you for the 2 extra minutes as well.